He called me too old as he walked out the door for a 22-year-old intern. I think he expected me to cry, to just fade into the background of the life we'd built. He probably thought I'd become a ghost. What he didn't realize was that he'd just unleashed the most powerful version of me. He never expected I'd build an empire from the ashes of our marriage. He certainly never expected I'd become the woman he now fears. Our story wasn't some whirlwind romance. It was a slow burn, 15 years in the making. We were partners, building our life from the ground up. We met in college and started our company, Archewell Dynamics, from a dusty garage. Our partnership was like a car. I was the engine, the strategist behind the scenes seeing 10 steps ahead, while Mark was the polished exterior and the driver, the charmer who could win over investors. For 15 years, I believed we were a team. I told myself my name didn't need to be on the door. My validation was our success. The first crack was so small, I almost missed it. Late nights at the office became the new normal. Mark, a man of comfortable routines, was suddenly obsessed with designer suits and expensive cologne. His phone, once casually tossed aside, became an extension of his hand. The screen always angled away. When I gently asked about it, the gaslighting began. It was like he was a magician, using misdirection to make me doubt my own eyes. "You've been so stressed lately, honey. I think you're just imagining things. I'm doing all this for us. Why can't you see that?" That doubt he planted took root. I started questioning my own sanity. Was I being paranoid? That's the insidious thing about betrayal. It makes your own mind feel like an unreliable narrator. I lived with a constant hum of anxiety, a feeling that something was deeply wrong. I know now that was my gut screaming at me, my body's alarm system blaring, even if my brain couldn't see the fire yet. The day my world imploded started like any other Tuesday. I was looking for a grocery list on our shared iPad. I wasn't looking for trouble, but there it was. A message thread with Jessica, intern. It started professionally, then turned flirtatious, and then it went to a place that felt like a punch to the gut. I scrolled through messages about their secret lunches, his compliments on her youthful energy, and plans for a business trip to a boutique hotel in our city. The last message I saw was from him to her. It said, "She has no idea. She's too caught up in the back end of the business. She's let herself go. It's like living with a relic from the past." A relic? After 15 years of pouring my heart and soul into our dream, I was a relic. The city noise outside faded away. The entire architecture of my life, so carefully built, just shattered into a million pieces. I confronted him that night. I was strangely calm, holding the iPad like it was Exhibit A in the trial of my life. "Who is Jessica?" For a second, he looked like a trapped animal. Then, the mask of a practiced liar slipped back on. He didn't deny it. He looked relieved. "Look," he said, "I didn't want you to find out this way." That classic, empty line, as if there's a good way to discover your life, is built on a lie. Then he said the words that would become the fuel for my rebirth. "She's 22. She's full of life. She sees me for who I am now. Honestly, you've become old. You let yourself go. This life, it's just not exciting anymore." Every word was a calculated blow meant to assassinate my self-worth. He packed a bag, and as he stood at the door, he delivered his final verdict. "Don't worry, I'll make sure you're taken care of." He saw me as a problem to be managed, a loose end to be tied up with alimony. But as that door clicked shut, I didn't collapse. A cold, hard clarity washed over me. He thought this was the end. He had no idea it was the beginning. The first few weeks are a blur. I was a ghost haunting the rooms of a life that was no longer mine. The grief was a physical weight. I wasn't just mourning him. I was mourning the trusting woman I used to be, replaying his cruel words on a loop. Old. Let yourself go. My rock bottom arrived on a Tuesday morning. I saw my reflection in the dark TV screen and didn't recognize the hollow-eyed woman staring back. In that moment, grief curdled into cold, quiet rage. I looked at that reflection and thought, he does not get to write my ending. He does not get to do this to me. It was time to ask, what now? My first act of rebellion was therapy. It wasn't just about talking. It was like getting a map to navigate the storm inside my own head. My therapist gave me tools to quiet my nervous system. which was constantly braced for a fight. Breathing, grounding, simple acts that felt like taking back control of my own body, 1 inch at a time. Step 2 was rebuilding my identity. I started small, reclaiming pieces of myself I'd filed away. I went back to the rock climbing gym Mark had called unladylike, feeling my muscles burn, focusing only on the next handhold. For an hour, I wasn't a broken wife. I was a woman testing her own strength. Reclaiming these parts of myself was like finding lost puzzle pieces and slowly making myself whole again. The third most important step came wrapped in legal papers. Mark's first divorce offer was an insult, a severance package to keep me quiet. His lawyer spoke to me like I was a disgruntled secretary. That condescension was his biggest mistake. I hired the sharpest divorce attorney I could find, Eleanor Vance. She said, "Men like your husband always underestimate the women they leave behind. Let's make him regret that." Eleanor didn't just look at our personal assets. She dug up the original incorporation documents for Archwell Dynamics, and when she found them, she called me into her office. She laid a document on her desk and pointed to one paragraph. It was as if I'd been demoted to a passenger on a ship I didn't realize I co-owned, and I had just found the captain's key in my back pocket. My hands were shaking as I read. To protect ourselves as an unmarried couple starting out, we'd structured the ownership. He held 51%, and I, as a silent founding partner, held 47%. The last 2% were for future investors. I wasn't just the wife. I was the second largest shareholder. He had forgotten. In his arrogance, he had completely forgotten the power I held. I realized this wasn't just a divorce anymore. This was a hostile takeover. Things moved fast. I stopped talking to him. I requested a full, independent audit of the company. His lawyers tried to brush me off, but Eleanor held firm. "My client is a 47% shareholder. Deny her, and we'll see you in court." The boxes of documents started arriving. For weeks, I became a detective in my own life. The documents were my crime scene, and with forensic accountants as my partners, I followed the money. Every thread I pulled, the boutique hotel, the fancy dinners coded as client entertainment, the vanity projects, led back to him. He hadn't just been cheating on me, he'd been cheating the company, our company. His arrogance had made him sloppy. His panic started to show in frantic emails to his lawyer, which were forwarded right to Eleanor. The man who'd so coolly walked out on me was starting to be afraid. Section 3. The Phoenix Rises. The day of the annual shareholder meeting felt like walking on stage for the final act. I chose a simple, elegant dress, the color of deep crimson, the color of fire. When I walked into the boardroom, the board members, all men Mark had hand-picked, looked at me with a mix of curiosity and pity. The scorned wife. They had no idea. Mark sat at the head of the table, looking pale. He tried to start with his usual bravado, but his voice was thin. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't mention the affair. This wasn't personal. It was business. I stood up, and with a crisp presentation, I didn't just present evidence. I performed a surgical operation on his bloated empire. Slide after slide was another precise incision, cutting away the lies. The audit results, the consulting fees paid to a shell company, the first-class flights. I laid out the facts one by one. I wasn't an angry wife. I was a surgeon, calmly removing a cancer from the company I had built. Mark tried to interrupt. "This is a personal vendetta." I turned to him, my face a blank mask. "Mark, the only laundry being aired here is the company's, and it seems you've been using the corporate account for your dry cleaning." A few board members shifted. They understood numbers, and the numbers on the screen told a story of huge liability. I let the silence hang before delivering the final blow. "Therefore, as the holder of 47% of this company's shares, I am calling for a vote of no confidence in the current CEO." Panic flashed in his eyes. He looked for an ally and found only stone-faced businessmen. His power was an illusion I had just shattered with facts. The vote was a formality, like the final swing of a gavel. One by one, their eyes were the nails in the coffin of his career at Archwell. His reign was over. In the aftermath, the board unanimously voted me in as interim CEO. The relic was now sitting at the head of the table. My life today is unrecognizable. Under my leadership, Archewell Dynamics is thriving. I cut the fat, promoted the talented people he'd overlooked, and built a culture of respect. Our profits are soaring. I see Mark in headlines sometimes. His new ventures failed. Turns out, nobody wants to invest in a man with such a public record of bad judgment. I hear his relationship with the intern imploded under financial stress. He looks older, worn down by his own choices. They say he talks about me not with anger, but with a kind of fearful awe. He created his own worst nightmare, an ex-wife who is more successful than he ever was. The betrayal didn't break me. It broke me open. It forced me to face all the ways I had made myself smaller to fit into his life. The pain was unbearable, but it was also a catalyst. It was like a forest fire that burned away all the undergrowth, leaving behind a woman who wasn't afraid to stand in her own light. He tried to erase my past, but in doing so, he handed me my future. My story isn't one of revenge. It's a story of reclamation. It's proof that sometimes the most devastating endings are really just the beginning of who you were always meant to be. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever had a moment that threatened to break you, please know you are not alone. Share your own story of strength in the comments. Your story matters. And if you want to see more about reclaiming your power and rewriting your narrative, don't forget to subscribe.